This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Liz Stockton Rossini. You know, we've been hearing a lot about slavery reparations on the heels of nationwide protests against police brutality and racial injustice ever since the death of George Floyd. Over the summer, Democrats in Washington called for a vote on a bill to study reparations, while some cities and states are examining the issue on their own. And it just so happens it's the subject of a book by retired federal administrative law judge Daisy G. Collins in Cleveland, Ohio. It's entitled, Without Us, No U.S.
The reason I wrote the book was because I want to remember and honor our African American ancestors. Another reason that I wanted to write the book is that I want everyone to know the truth about the contributions of our African American ancestors to the establishment of the United States of America. The government of the United States should say thank you to the enslaved African Americans and to their descendants. They should apologize to the enslaved African American ancestors and to their descendants, and they should pay reparations to the enslaved African Americans and their descendants. And of course, they would at this point have to pay the reparations to the descendants on behalf of the ancestors and on behalf of the descendants. There would not even be a United States of America without our enslaved African American ancestors. For example, assume that the 13 American colonies are existing. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and the other founding fathers are in the 13 American colonies. However, assume that there are no enslaved African Americans. If you look at it from that perspective, you can see that there would not be a United States of America in its present form if there had not been our enslaved African American ancestors. Definitely, the United States of America would not be the economic power that it is today without the wealth created by the very valuable unpaid forced labor of our enslaved African Americans ancestors. Not only can we say truthfully that the black lives of our enslaved African American ancestors matter, we can say that their lives should be elevated to the high place they deserve in the history of the United States of America, equal to the high place of the founding fathers. My African American ancestors were forced to come here in very inhumane conditions. There is absolutely no comparison to the way that our African American ancestors came and the way that other people came. Okay. Many years ago, Congressman John Conyers introduced a bill to study reparations. And at this time, I believe that Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has a bill to study reparations. There have been instances where reparations have been paid. In fact, I set out some of those instances where certain people have made efforts to make reparations. I have put some things on social media. I have two websites, and also I did put an ad in the souvenir booklet for the National Bar Association convention. They had a virtual convention, and I have sent out various notices. However, things have certainly been hampered by the fact that we are in this COVID-19 situation. One more thing, I want everybody to understand that the black lives of our African American ancestors were precious lives. They were human beings, and I refer to them as enslaved persons. I do not refer to them as slaves because they were human beings. And I think we should realize that all of our enslaved African American ancestors were human beings and that their lives were precious, just as all human beings have lives that are precious.
All right, Daisy, so true. Thank you. Nothing like a barfly to spin a few good yarns. Our next author owned a bar on 23rd Street in Manhattan, and not only does he have great stories, he proves how far an act of kindness can go.
My author name is Freeman Boise. I'm originally from Detroit, but I've been in New York for many years here, Jersey City, Staten Island.
Did you own a
Yeah.
bar? I mean, you wrote a book called Bar Life, right?
Yeah, I had a little thing back a few years ago. I think it was a bar. Yeah.
You had a bar.
Yeah.
So I guess
Yeah.
owning a bar inspired you to write a book called Bar Life.
Yes, the book is about bar life, just like it says, bar life. Each day is a different adventure. And these are a few of the adventures that I had in the bar. Um, there was a situation where three of us in there watching a game, and this girl comes in and she says, "Can I join you?" And they say, "Yeah." And so she sits down, and the guy went to the bathroom. When he came out of the bathroom, he said, "My wallet's gone." He said, "I left my wallet in my coat pocket." Well, wasn't nobody there but him and me, his friend, and the girl. So she says, "Well, don't look at me. I didn't see it. Search me." And took her pocketbook and dumped it out on the bar. And I said, "Well, there's only the four of us in here." So I told him, I said, "Well, go call the cops." And so the girl got up and said, "Ain't nobody doing nothing to me. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. I showed you. I ain't got it, and I'm gone." And she went out to the corner. And the guy says to me, said, "What should I do? What should I do?" I said, "Don't let her get away till the cops come. So at least you could search her." So he went down to the corner where she was, and he grabbed her because she was trying to get in a cab. And he said, "No," he pulled her back. Then, right there on the corner, he just lifted up her dress and stuck his hand in there and got his wallet on the corner. People were turning around. They thought something was going on. It was like, and I couldn't believe he did that. I was like, my God. And then he came back over across the street, and I said to him, how did you do what?" He said, "When I grabbed her to keep her from going in the car, I felt my wallet." And he said, "I was getting my wallet." And I said, "Well, my gracious." So he got his wallet, but that's the kind of things that go on. And then there was a lot of good things. It's a really great book.
So at the end of the book, we find this guy who is.
Yeah, well, he used to be my manager.
Okay.
And at the end of the book, I had gotten out of the bar and I had gone back to work in the garage. And he was kind of like homeless a little bit. And he started coming by the garage. Well, we had a big office in there and stuff. And my boss had wanted somebody to be there at night and watch the place. And I was like, "Yeah, he probably would." He said, "Well, he could sleep here in the office." And so that's what happened. But he had a problem with his arm, okay? And he had been going to the doctor, at least he said he had. So one day, my boss came in and he said, "It smells, man." I said, "Lord, you going to the doctor about your arm and stuff?" And he said, "Yeah." So he told me, he said, "You take him to the doctor and make sure." So I go back there and I drop him off at the hospital there. And as I pull away, he like turns and starts walking up First Avenue. And so I backed up. I said, "Get in the car." He got in the car. So now I parked the car and I take it inside. I speak to the doctor. He tells me that he has cancer.
Oh.
So I said, "Well, how bad is it?" He says he's only got a couple of days to live. When he died the next day, I had to go through his stuff in the garage there and whatever. And I got this letter, and this letter says, "If you're reading this, that means I'm dead. But I just want you to know that you were the best friend I ever had. And I will always appreciate how you stood by me and helped me. Let me tell you, Oh my golly! So it's really a great book. I think I got a bestseller here sooner or later.
All
And
right. Once it's out there, anything
yeah,
can happen, Ken.
yeah.
Dogs have inspired more books than I can count. And, there's a reason for that. Good Girl the Pup now joins that prestigious list.
Hi, my name is Paige Skinner. I'm from Newport News, Virginia, and I'm a military public affairs officer for the Air Force. And the book, Good Girl the Pup, was inspired by my son and our dog, who's a rescue pup, and her name is actually Winx, Winx. And they have such a tight, close relationship. And Good Girl came about because my son thought that our dog's name was Good Girl for the longest time, since she would get nervous around him when he was a baby, and we would just love all over her and say, "Oh, you're such a good girl." So that's how it came about. So the story starts when the little boy, which is my son, is born, and the dog can't play because the parents are so wrapped up in the new baby, and she's sad, but she eventually sees that, oh, he's big enough and now he can play. And then it goes into how the little boy takes care of his dog by keeping her water bowl full, taking her outside to go potty, giving her food and treats. And then it kind of moves into a bedtime part of the story where they have to pick up their toys, they have to brush their teeth, and start calming down and reading books before bedtime.
Does your son really do all these things?
He does, and she actually curls up at my feet during story time, and then my son will fall asleep on top of the dog.
Oh.
And they're always snuggling and they're always following each other around. It's ridiculously precious.
Oh my God, no wonder you couldn't help but write this book.
Yeah. It's actually a way that I kind of deal with life. I just like to write. Either I'll write something that's on my mind, or I'll just write in a rhythmic style like this book is written. And it just kind of is the way I keep my resilience. And when I started reading to my son, he loved it. And I was like, okay, I should probably do something with this if he loves it. And now all of my friends' kids love the book. So it turned out to be something really great.
This should be in every veterinarian's office.
Yes, yes. I work full-time for the military. I have my own YouTube channel. I'm doing all kinds of things on the side, but I love to live my life that way with a full plate. Once everything kind of calms down and things are opening back up, then I'm going to get right back on it, and I'm going to hit up our local animal shelters and maybe get them some copies and maybe host an adoption day so some other rescue pups like my dog, Good Girl, could be adopted out and kind of have their own story like her.
Oh, well, that's so sweet, Paige. Thank you. Hey, it's break time on the Page Publishing Book Club. Don't go anywhere.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
You're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. The Waters of Crystal Lake is about something we've become all too familiar with, a mysterious illness that no one can seem to figure out.
My name is Melissa Davis Bays. I'm from Georgetown, Kentucky, which is outside of Lexington, Kentucky. I'm retired. I used to be a financial service rep with MetLife and other companies. I wrote the book because I have a master's in microbiology, and I have not worked in that field for a long time, but I did write a little bit of a possible novel maybe in the early 80s. And a few years ago, I decided to finish the novel, and it is an exciting story of an unknown epidemic in a fictitious town outside of Nashville, Tennessee. The story has several parts. The main story is what happens to this town when people become ill. And there are several stories going on within this novel. One is a research assistant in a Nashville University hospital who has been divorced recently, has gotten her master's degree, and is working for a very unpleasant person who is a world authority on DNA. And then her boyfriend, who is a resident at the hospital, is sent by his boss to investigate this strange illness that hits the Tennessee town. And she goes with him to help him collect data. Another part of the story is the family practitioner who is trying to deal with all the ill people and is also going through a divorce with his wealthy wife from Memphis. Third part of the story is his nurse, who is trying to also help him and all the people that have become ill and are at the local hospital.
What's the illness like?
It is an intestinal illness, unlike what we're seeing now with the pandemic. This is a medical mystery, so I don't want to give away too much, but it's an exciting book. The first 4 chapters deal mainly with the introduction of the characters and what it was like to live in Nashville in 1979, which is where the setting of the book is. My research assistant in the book is not treated so well by the higher-ups. At that point, still women were not that well looked upon in research.
You say that they find an unbelievable reason for the epidemic.
Yes. I can't tell you the reason because that would ruin the book. The last 100 pages, I would say, is a thriller. The research assistant's life is on the line, and her parents are extremely worried about her who live in a town close by. She's also very confused because she has gotten a divorce and is afraid to get involved with the new boyfriend very much. In the meantime, the research assistant is trying to help the Nashville scientist find the reason for the epidemic.
Okay. Now, it says in your blurb that they have to admit that a madman is on the loose.
That's true, yes.
Okay.
And you have to read the book to find out why somebody in Nashville is connected with an epidemic 100 miles away.
Woo! It's interesting that, you wrote this book years ago, but that you would decide to release it now.
Well, it was released in the summer of 2019 before we even knew about a coronavirus. It's a real coincidence. However, my dad was born in 1900. When he was 18, he saw a few of his classmates die from the Spanish flu, and that was in Arkansas.
Right.
So I always heard this story, and maybe that was in my subconscious when I crafted this whole story. It's been pretty popular in central Kentucky. I've done 3 book signings, one in Memphis, one in Nashville, and one in Lexington. And I've presented the book to 5 book clubs in the area. Right. Now, because of the coronavirus, 2 of the book signings were canceled because one store went out of business and one has not decided yet to have any book signings. I'm not too keen on going there myself. The one that I had about 3 weeks ago, we had to meet outside at a park area.
How did that work out?
It worked out pretty well. Everybody had on masks and brought their own chairs. We had about 20. And I would like to get the word out to more people, for instance, in New York State, Pennsylvania, wherever, that this is an exciting book. Even though it's set in Tennessee, it could have been set any place.
All right, Melissa, we'll do the best we can. Can you really get a second chance at love, even if you never really found it the first time? I don't know, but Love at the Lake might get you thinking.
My name is Teresa Burweiler. I live in Eatontown, New Jersey. I'm actually a medical receptionist at this point in my illustrious career as a middle-class worker. I separated from my husband 2 years ago, and I needed something to do because we were living in the same house. It's all very amicable, but I didn't want to be in the house with him. So I started going to the library, and I just had this story in my head. And I would think about it. I said, I should write this stuff down, And I just started writing, and it just started coming to me. And it's totally my fantasy to have a great love,
How long were you married?
36 years today.
And you felt like you never really found the love of your life.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, I haven't. I still haven't. I mean, my husband is a good man. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know who I am because I went from my father's house to my husband's house. And it took us a long time to have a baby. And I was doing everything I thought I was supposed to do. And turns out, I could have done what I wanted the whole time.
So how interesting that you should imagine and write about the perfect love story.
Yeah. It's about a man and a woman who meet as teenagers. He moves in across the street from her. She's got a big family. I come from a big family. I have 3 brothers and 3 sisters. He becomes friends with her brothers. They teach him how to play the guitar. She falls in love with him instantly at 8 years old. They start dating in high school, and he goes on to be a big country rock star. And they always plan to get married and take their kids on the road, have lots of kids, go on the road. She was going to be a teacher. And at 19, she got pregnant before they got married. She ended up having a miscarriage at 8 months. And her parents break them up. And they see each other 5 years later. They realize they're still in love. They have one kind of magical night together. And he leaves her because he can't give her what she wants, a home, a family. He wants to be out on the road. So she gets back together with her boyfriend, gets married, has a happy life. Her husband dies. And her daughter turns 30. She goes, I want to know more about Dad's family. So she takes a DNA test on Ancestry.com and finds out her father is not her father. It was her mother's boyfriend. So the story is really about Kelsey and Jean's relationship, not a father-daughter thing. And so she takes her daughter to the concert to meet him. And, it goes from there how they see each other and get back together, basically.
What kind of feedback are you getting?
Well, one of my friends who bought the book said they really like it, and they're surprised because I did put a little sex in it. They're surprised that I had thoughts like that, I guess, because I'm a good Catholic girl.
They do it too.
Yeah. But a lot of people like it. And they go, well, are you going to write a sequel? And I said, well, I'm thinking about it. I've got something in mind for, another book for that. I am working on another book called The Sea Mist Inn about a poor woman who's all alone in the world. But yeah, I guess you can tell I feel all alone in the world.
Well, you're really feeling this writing thing.
Well, it's funny because, I always did what I was supposed to do. And I never knew I could write. Everybody thinks I'm creative and artistic. And my son is a great artist. But I'm creative, but I don't think of myself as an artist. But I realized over the years, it's like I can write. There was a lot of things I've written, but I never really took it seriously because I'm not a trained writer. But I guess I'm discovering I am a writer. Now that everything's opening up again, I have my first flea market, and I'm going to be doing some more of them. And, people are going to start having events that I can, rent a table at. Great. And I will go to bookstores. And so we'll see. I'm hoping it works.
We're all hoping it works, Teresa. Thanks. If you think things are so bad in your life it can never get better, check out our next book. This seed is for you if you want to know how not to run life's marathons.
My name is James Parks. I'm from Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm currently disabled. I wrote my first book. This seed is for you if you want to know how not to run life's marathons. I'm basically letting people know that you don't have to come from the ghetto or be in a gang to make poor choices in life and wind up in prison, such as myself. And I take you on a journey before and after, while during incarceration. I also speak about God's favor throughout my life. October the 16th, 2015, I was in a fatal car accident. My wife drove through an intersection, and I was sitting on the passenger side. And we were T-boned so hard on the passenger side that she was ejected out the driver's side window, and it killed her instantly as our vehicle tumbled and came to rest on top of her. They had to use the jaws of life to cut me out of the vehicle. I was on life support for 3 days. I was in ICU a week. I was in a hospital a month. I had a broke neck and 9 broke ribs and 3 surgeries within the first 2 weeks. No one expected for me to live, but how else would I have done 10.5 years of prison and never joined a gang and never had an altercation and never got a tattoo due to the peer pressure from society in there, and lived through a fatal car accident when the initial impact was on my side of the vehicle. I also wrote about the things that people don't stop to think about, the things that we take for granted, because no mind can fathom what it's like not to be able to see the stars in the sky for 10.5 years, or what it's like to not be able to walk up and touch a tree. The smells of bubblegum, perfume, cologne, they sound silly, but when they're taken away from you, you realize how much you've taken them for granted. This book is full of action from the very beginning to the end.
How did you end up in jail?
All of that's in the book. I was on the wrong path. I'll accept my responsibility, but a lot of times everything begins with one drink, hanging with the wrong friend. The next thing you know, you're going down the wrong path. And that's another reason why I wrote the book, to help someone else out to keep from traveling down that same path that I traveled down. 10.5 years of prison for aggravated robberies.
And then when you got out, you had the car accident.
Yes, I sure did.
And now what is your life like?
My life is like making an effort, trying to help someone else out from going down the same path that I traveled down. I'm disabled. I have what you call a brachial plexus, permanent nerve damage. I have a lot of pain in the back of my head. Every few hours I have to lay down. You reap what you sow. It's part of the harvest of it, But I count my blessings and not my troubles, because I've seen things, and I wrote about it when I was incarcerated. I've seen guys come in with a 3-year sentence and end up with a life sentence, just to protect themselves. So, things could always be worse. And, one of my charge partners, I thought I had the worst end of the deal. They reinstated his probation and cut him loose. And 1 year later, he went up north and got shot in the head, and he was killed. So I was like, wow, maybe things aren't as bad, Actually, I've bought 1,500 business cards with the title on there and the Amazon link on there. And I get out and I talk to people, and that's what I've been trying to do. Even if it helps one person, it's well worth it. That's what I think.
James, you're amazing. We could all learn a few things from you. Thank you. Okay, we are out of time. Thank you, authors. If you missed anything, download the podcast at 710WOR.com. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Catch you next time.